Recently I had some friends ask me, how do I have a meaningful conversation with someone about Jesus? Well, that's a controversial topic, of course. And the more I thought about it, there's lots of different ways that I've talked about Jesus with people over the years. And one way that I think is pretty helpful, I thought I'd share with you and see what you think. When you're trying to talk with somebody about Jesus, it's really important that you not preach to people and just tell people what you think. That's kind of rude and off-putting, and you look a little weird. People think Christians are weird anyway. But rather, a better strategy is to ask questions and listen. And you like it when people ask you questions and listen to you. So do them the courtesy of doing the same. So, I'd start the conversation something like, I've been thinking for a while about who Jesus is. And you're a friend and somebody that's pretty thoughtful. I'm curious what you think. Who do you think Jesus is? And then just listen. Don't say anything. Don't give your opinion. Don't tell them what you think. Just let them talk. And listen. And as they're talking, they'll tell you what they think. And there's lots of different things that people think about Jesus. Some people think that he's a great moral teacher. And there's others that think, he's an example of self-sacrificial love. Others think that, he's just a myth. He's just a guy in a story. Of course, if that's true, then people like Julius Caesar, Homer, Hannibal, Hammurabi, those are all myths and legends too, because there's more historical evidence that Jesus lived and died than those guys did. But granted that Jesus was a real person, what else is he? God? There's lots of different things that people think about him. And let them talk, and let them say what they think. But as they're talking, don't share what you think. Don't say what you believe. But ask a couple more follow-up questions. Something like, oh, that's interesting. What makes you think that? Or, I'm curious, how did you come to that conclusion? Just kind of draw them out a little bit more by asking some more questions and listen. And do them the courtesy of hearing them. After a while, though, as you're having a conversation and asking good questions, eventually they're going to do you the courtesy of asking, so who do you think Jesus is? And you really should wait until they ask you. But when they do, don't just tell them what you think. Don't tell them what you believe, but rather take a more tentative, kind of thoughtful approach to it. Say something to the effect of, I've been thinking through that quite a bit, and this is the best I've been able to come up with so far. There's a lot of things that Jesus said during his life, and amongst those is he claimed to be God. That was the reason he was killed. He said it so much and often enough that it upset enough people that they eventually killed him for saying it over and over again. One time when he upset some people, he asked, for what good thing are you killing me? And they said, well, not for any good thing you've done, but you being a mere man, make yourself out to be God. That's why we're picking up stones to kill you. Another time he said, before Abraham was, I am. Taking on the very name of God, I am, for himself, which is highly offensive to Jewish people. When he was arrested and standing before the high council, the high priest asked him, are you the Christ? He said, I am. And you'll see me sitting at the right hand of the Father. Well, what other blasphemy do we need to hear? Let's go kill him. And that's what they did. They took him out and killed him. That's the reason that he was killed, is because he kept saying, I'm God, I'm God, I'm God. But it's one thing to claim it. Anybody can claim to be God. It's another thing for it to be so. And that's the real question, is it true? Jesus claimed to be God. Is it true? Well, there's really only two possibilities. He claimed to be God, and he was God. Or he claimed to be God, and he wasn't. But if he claimed to be God, and he wasn't God, then there's really two possibilities there. Either he wasn't God, and he knew he wasn't God, or he wasn't God, and he didn't know he was God. Well, if he wasn't God and he didn't know it, well, that would make him nuts. Yeah, right, you're God, sure. Yeah, go on with that. That would make him a lunatic. Make him insane, to make him nuts, ready for the loony bin. But when we look at the historical records and the Gospels and all about who we see Jesus to be, he seems to be very stable mentally. In fact, there's many people, millions, who've been healed physically, mentally, and spiritually over the centuries because of Jesus. He doesn't appear to be somebody on the knife's edge of sanity. So that doesn't really seem to fit the picture. Another possibility is that Jesus wasn't God and he knew he wasn't God. Well, if that's true, that wouldn't make him a very good person. That'd make him a liar, because he said he was God, but he knew he really wasn't. In fact, that would make him a deceiver. He's telling people to trust him with their eternal destiny because he said that he conquered sin and death, and so he's the guy that can deliver you from those things. But if he really couldn't, and he knew that wouldn't make him a really good person. In fact, it's more like the devil himself rather than the savior of the universe. It's certainly not a good moral teacher. And yet, when we look at the historical records, Jesus appears to be a person of high moral character, the epitome of humanity, not the devil himself. He doesn't seem to be a great deceiver. So that doesn't seem to work either. So then I'm really only left with one other possibility. Jesus claimed to be God, and he really was. But if that's true, then I have a choice to make. It doesn't seem to be a whole lot of middle ground. I can either reject it or I can accept it. And of course, anybody's free to reject that, and plenty of people have. But there are some real consequences to that. If he really is God, there's consequences to rejecting that. And if he is God, and I accept it, then that means he has something to do with me and I have something to do with him. It means I have to confess that, yeah, I really have done some bad stuff and I need your forgiveness, and accept what he did for me by dying for me, and that he can give me power to do what I can't do on my own, because he actually has the power to live a good life that I don't. And of course also the promise that I could live with him forever if I want to, because he was able to conquer sin and conquer death. And that's an amazing thing, but that also means that he owns me. He bought me with a price. He paid for me by dying on a cross. And that means he's my Lord, that I give my life to him, that I love, honor, and serve him the rest of my life. It's the consequence for accepting it. So the best I can figure out is he really is God, and I have to accept that. And I asked him to forgive me of my sin, and I've given my life to him. That's the best conclusion I've been able to come up with. So that will help you, I think, have a conversation with somebody. Jesus claimed to be God. The question is, was he? Is it true? You're left with one of two possibilities. Either he was or he wasn't. If he wasn't God, then either he was a liar and deceiver, the devil himself, or he was nuts, insane, and bound for the loony bin, or he was who he said he is, the creator God of the universe come in the flesh. And if that's true, then I either have to accept that or reject that. It's up to me. But there you go. I hope that helps. What? You goofy dog. What? You silly. Hey, I'm trying to do a video here. Yeah. Yeah, silly dog. You're a good dog.